We are in a late Republican period. If we're going to push back against it, we have to get pretty wild and pretty far out there and go in directions that a lot of conservatives right now are uncomfortable with. That wasn't the slip of the tongue. That was a notification. JD Vance wasn't just talking about winning an election. He's talking about dismantling a regime. And as we look at the shifting rhetoric of the Republican Party, the wild directions he mentioned are no longer theoretical. They are the platform. Now, most people imagine the MAGA movement ends with Donald Trump. They view it like a personality cult that fades when the leader leaves the stage. Well, that is fantasy, because while everyone is watching the showman, they are missing the architect. The reality of the 2028 election isn't about looking back at Trump. It's about the succession plan that is already in motion. Hi, I'm David Tomsik, and welcome to Loud and Clear. To understand the political landscape we are entering, the reality of the 2028 election isn't about looking back at Trump, but instead looking at it as a structural engineering project. The media is obsessed with Donald Trump, his rallies, his trials, his tweets. But Trump is a battering ram. Battering rams are useful for breaking down doors, but they cannot build the fortress that comes after. For that, you need a blueprint, and you need an heir who understands not just the populism of the moment, but the theology of the future. In this video, we are breaking down the alliance that is quietly reshaping the American right. The pact between JD Vance and the evangelical voters who have realized that Trump was merely the vessel, not the destination. We are going to look at three specific mechanisms: the theological pivot, the administrative blueprint known as Project 2025, and the succession plan for 2028. So let's get started. Number one, the theological pivot. We have to look at the evidence. If you listen carefully to JD Vance, you will find a distinct shift in frequency from the standard Republican talking points of the last 20 years. For decades, the alliance between the GOP and evangelical voters was merely transactional. It was about judges and abortion. It was a marriage of convenience. But what we are witnessing now is a fusion of identity. Vance represents a new strain of conservatism called national conservatism, or more accurately in this context, a political expression of Christian nationalism. Vance's conversion to Catholicism in 2019 wasn't just a personal spiritual journey, it was a political signaling event. He didn't join the Church of Pope Francis. He aligned himself with the post-liberal intellectuals who believe that the American experiment in secular liberty has failed. I have seen the data. I have read the essays. And the argument they are making is that neutrality in the public square is a lie. They believe that if you do not enforce a moral order, someone else will enforce theirs upon you. JD Vance is the articulation of this fear. When he speaks to evangelical voters, he doesn't just promise to protect them. He promises to wield power on their behalf. He tells them that the institutions, the universities, the corporations, the government agencies are not just biased, but hostile. This is why the base loves him. They don't see him as a politician. They see him as a gladiator in a culture war they believe they are losing. Donald Trump tapped into their anger. Yes, but Trump is transactional. He is not a theologian. He doesn't read St. Augustine. Vance does. And this distinction matters. While Trump demands loyalty to himself, Vance demands loyalty to a civilizational project. He provides the intellectual framework that justifies the anger. He tells them, "You are not crazy. The system is rigged against your values, and we are going to burn down the system to save them." This is the shadow plan. It's not about tax cuts or deregulation in the traditional sense. It's about remoralizing the state. And for the evangelical bloc looking past the chaos of Trump, Vance is the stable intellectual vessel they have been waiting for. Now this brings us to the second mechanism, the structural blueprint. Now, we've talked about Project 2025 on this channel many times, but usually it is framed as Donald Trump's wish list. I want you to look at it differently today. I want you to look at it as JD Vance's operating manual. At the core of Project 2025 is the expansion of executive power and the dismantling of the administrative state, what they call the deep state. That involves reclassifying tens of thousands of civil servants as political appointees, effectively stripping them of their protections. This is the restoration of Schedule F. Now, Donald Trump wants this power for retribution. He wants to fire the people who investigated him. That's true. But JD Vance, he wants this power for reconstruction. Vance has explicitly said that if he were in charge, he would fire every civil servant in the mid-level of the bureaucracy and replace them with our people. He has said that when the courts try to stop him, he would stand before the country and say, "The Chief Justice has made his ruling, now let him enforce it." This is a direct challenge to the constitutional order. It's a call for a unitary executive that ignores the checks and balances we learned about in grade school. So why does this appeal to the evangelical voter for the 2028 election? Because they have concluded that the bureaucracy is their enemy. They believe the Department of Education, the DOJ, and the FBI are weaponized against their faith. To them, a neutral government is a government that allows drag queen story hours and mandates pronouns. They don't want neutrality anymore. They want a counter-revolution. And Project 2025 gives them the legal theory to do it. This isn't just about trimming the fat. This is about decapitation. It's about removing the institutional memory of the government and replacing it with ideological loyalists. And here's the critical point. Donald Trump has the will to break things, but lacks the discipline to build. He gets distracted. He makes deals. JD Vance is disciplined. He's young. He's ideological. If Trump is the demolition crew, Vance is the architect who builds the new temple on the ruins. This changes everything because the movement doesn't die when Donald Trump leaves office. The movement is just getting started. The mechanisms we discussed are being installed right now in the think tanks and staffing lists waiting for 2028. Here's the third and final point I'm going to make today. It's the succession. The question for the remainder of the 2020s isn't will Donald Trump win? It's what happens after. The evangelical leadership knows that Donald Trump is a finite resource. He's aging. He's volatile. He comes with a massive amount of baggage. They have squeezed every ounce of utility out of him. He gave them the Supreme Court. He gave them the overturning of Roe v. Wade. But they need a long-term strategy. JD Vance is that strategy. Vance bridges the gap between the chaotic populism of Trump's base and the intellectual rigidity of the religious right. He speaks MAGA fluently, but he thinks in terms of Christian nationalism. By 2028, this country will likely be exhausted. The economic reality, the debt wall we talked about on this channel, will be crushing. The social divisions will be deeper. In that environment, the voters won't be looking for another entertainer. They will be looking for order. And that's the pitch Vance offers. Order. Not the order of the old establishment, but a new imposed order based on traditional values. We are seeing a generational shift. Younger conservative men are polling more religiously and politically radical than their fathers. They are barstool conservatives who have found God, and Vance is their avatar. He validates their feelings that they were robbed of their birthrights. He tells them that the economic system that shipped their jobs away is the same system that mocks their religion. He ties the class war to the culture war perfectly. So, the plan for the 2028 election is simple. Inherit the machine that Trump built, but operate it with the precision of a true believer. Trump is the storm, Vance is the climate change. One passes. The other is a permanent shift in the atmosphere. Okay, I'm glad you're still around. I have a little bonus content, as I usually do, because I have a few things to get off my chest. First of all, I read a lot of comments, and I talk to a lot of people. And it kind of bothered me. Many people that I've talked to, many people who call themselves Christians openly and outwardly, believe that everything that's happening in this country right now is great. Whether people are getting shot, people's rights are being trampled, it doesn't matter to them. They believe, and they said, David, we need a strong man. We need an authoritarian. We need to take control of this country and get rid of all the people we don't want. You know some as well, I'm sure. If you have a story to tell me and know someone that has argued with you, please leave a comment in the comment section. I want to read it. I want to hear about it. Now, I've got bad news for these evangelical types, and I know a lot of them. They believe that tearing down the guardrails of our country is fine. getting rid of those constitutional barriers that prevent somebody from becoming a dictator is okay because it's their guy who's going to run it, and he's best. He knows more than anybody. Here's the problem. What happens when it isn't somebody that you want that takes over the tank and takes control of the country? You see, once you tear down the guardrails, anybody can then come into that position and take full control. That's why we have the system we have, 3 branches of government, so that we can protect our Constitution and the American people. I don't understand how people think that this is okay. So, you hear about JD Vance, and I just talked about him. He is not the guy you think he is. His mentor, Peter Thiel, who owns Palantir, is a right-wing Christian-type person. No, he controls a computer system that spies on every one of you every day. He used it with the government, and because it was so powerful, he was forced to kind of put it private. This guy will be JD Vance's hitman. He will have all the power of the state and all the power of one of the most sophisticated software systems that can spy on Americans in history. This is who you want. No, it shouldn't be the guy you want. Authoritarianism is not good no matter who has it, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican, whether he's a good guy or whether he's a bad guy. We don't need authoritarians in this government. We want freedom. And I think most people don't get it because there's so much hatred out there. Hatred. Liberals. Democrats are demons. You people don't know God. You're all going to hell. Go down the list of things that are said about those of us who are more left-leaning, those of us who believe in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. But many people don't understand because they don't care. And maybe they missed those classes at school. Maybe they didn't teach democracy or about democracy when they went to school. Maybe they don't understand how it works, how the judiciary is supposed to work, how the legislative branch is supposed to work. In fact, we don't have a legislative branch right now because those Republicans who control it just rubber stamp everything Trump does. How much have you heard about them condemning the murders that were taking place in Minneapolis? Murders. You haven't heard anything. Very little. I can tell you in my church, no one said a word. They prayed about everything else that had to do with them and all their people. We love each other and we're taking care of our community here. They hide themselves in their churches, and that's the problem with evangelicals. They hide themselves in their churches, their little bubbles. They have a guy with a gun at the door, right, because you see, they do. They have a guy with gun, sometimes multiple guys with guns, because any minute now somebody's going to come in and kill them all because they're doing such a great job for Jesus. Are they? You're actually useless. You're actually hurting the ministry of Jesus. They are actually hurting it. Hurting it. They don't understand. And so here they are ignoring the fact that our country's in turmoil. They won't pray for them because you see, here's the problem. And I said this in my last video. Here's the problem. See, it'll condemn them. Once they realize what's happening, then they have to recognize there is a problem. They have to realize that it's their man in the White House, their man that God put there, is the big problem. He's the one that put these maniacs known as ICE on the streets of America without anybody overseeing them. Just go and do what you need to do. Spray pepper spray into an average citizen just standing there. Shoot a guy that has a camera. Just shoot him. Because he wants to put everybody in their place. And that was the ultimate goal of Donald Trump. Retribution and control. Now, JD Vance, will he be much different? No, he could be worse. He's going to be the true believer. See, Donald Trump may not be a Christian. I don't know. He's not a true believer. He's a practical guy that wants power and money. So he will use Christians, as he did, to get to that. But JD Vance is a true believer in the right-wing agenda. And your rights are really in jeopardy under Trump. When JD Vance gets in, if he gets in, it'll be worse. So people, we've got to stop this now. We've got to spread the news that JD Vance is a problem, that he is somebody that we should fear even more than Donald Trump. And that is true. Please leave your comments. Let me know what you think. I want to hear from you. Please consider subscribing to our channel. Like and share the videos. Thank you. And remember, love your neighbor as yourself. Thanks for watching.